Banx is a perpetual peer-to-peer NFT lending protocol on Solana that aims to bring a true DeFi experience to lending NFTs. Do you guys want to extrapolate on that or give introductions to yourselves?
My name is Tim. I'm co-founder and CEO of Banx. I've been doing, I've been on Solana for like 2.5 years already, maybe 3 years. We started as NFT project initially. We were actually one of the very first NFT collections to mint on Solana, even before Metaplex standards and stuff like that, which was called Frakt by the time. And it was purely, experiment with the tech and the art and things like that. Yeah, and since then, just try to figure out, what we can build for the ecosystem, what value we can bring to the space, and basically that led us to NFT lending, which we were busy with for the last 2 years, I would say, year and a half for sure.
Yeah, and my name is Rawr, and I've been basically working together with Tim and the founding dev team since August 2021. And yeah, as Tim has mentioned, we've been, through the journey of experimenting here and there with a couple of things within the ecosystem, always trying to have in mind to bring utility to users and to the people within the NFT space. And the business case, I think, that we cherish the most and that brings us and the community that we have the most is indeed the lending borrowing escape with a couple of twists that we've been focused on that I think is, what has been animating us and helping us push as many full deliverables as we could in the past few months.
Sweet, cool. That's good interest. I think we'll just jump into sort of the general questions now. The first one is, what would you say is your biggest obstacle as a project?
Well, I guess there are a few obstacles that Solana projects face in general, right? Like Solana being kind of new chain, and for a lot of time we've been viewed as an underdog chain. So I guess we've been through the beer for the most part of our history, and we're kind of used to, proving the case that Solana is a chain to stay, is a chain, is a great chain to build on, and also for NFTs themselves. So these kind of two things that we're always convincing, not just ourselves, we didn't need to, but other people and investors and people like that, outsiders. But for our project in general, also we depend a lot on NFTs and Solana to strive for us to be successful. And as we are kind of obviously mega bullish on Solana and Solana NFTs, that's not a problem. It's just kind of, obvious link to our success. I would say kind of, if not the obstacles, but majorly, factors to our success is NFT space on Solana thriving and Solana as a chain thriving. And so far, we are pretty happy with how the space is develops. And I'm trying to contribute as much as we can, to the whole growth and help other fellow projects, whatever we can, pretty much.
Yeah, nothing to emphasize that with the type of products that, we do have, it's also key that we keep an eye on the education level of everyone, trying the protocol and, just playing around with what we've built. So it's definitely been something that, at the beginning was not an obstacle, but more of a challenge. And that now, together with the community, we have a very short iteration type of cycle. So when we release things, we can iterate, we can, go through the feedback, which is, what you do at an early stage of a company, which we've done, a few months ago. Now that we have released the Banx.gg protocol a couple of months back, we really feel like this is now something that, we've turned that obstacle in kind of one of our strengths. And that is linking up with the community that we have, making sure that, the product stays relevant for the users, relevant for everyone that, has a look at it. So yeah, I would say that's one of the things that comes with the either the curse or the opportunity to have been developing for 2.5 years in the ecosystem.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I've been around. I think I might have minted Frakt actually. Hard to remember, but
nice.
I've been around about as long.
You still have them?
Yeah. I have no idea. If I do, it's in a random wallet that I've probably lost somewhere. So I apologize.
Frakt is actually how I got
No
into
worries.
NFTs. I didn't mint one myself, but one of my friends did, and he kind of brought it to our group of friends, of like 20 friends in our Discord, and that's how I ended up in NFTs. So
It's fun. I like a
Awesome.
full circle moment.
That's so great to hear. And I've been hearing that, a lot of times that early on, I don't know if you remember, but Solana NFTs were minting like for 5 Sol each. and I kind of hated, the whole kind of concept, and it looked like hella expensive for me. So we made the mint half of Sol, basically 10 times less. And everybody, other kind of early projects were calling me crazy and stuff. And I was like, no, guys, I want to make it like super cheap. And because the whole point of Solana by the time was already clear, it's like super cheap and fast chain, right? So yeah, I kind of try to make that statement and onboard as many people as I can, on NFTs in general. And I know for a lot of people, it wasn't just the first Solana NFTs, it also was one of the ever. And yeah, that kind of
totally
warms my heart.
I'm curious. This is actually in a later question, but what are you guys doing as far as this token launch and stuff? Are you preserving the provenance of the Frakt NFTs?
Yeah, actually, that was a huge deal for us throughout the whole history. Is to whenever we come up with next, is to make sure that community is on board and the previous investors and previous holders are on board. I mean, I think at this moment, if you still keep your Fraks, you probably missed all the chances to migrate into Banx, because there was a migration into new collection, which is called Banx, to be aligned with the new protocol.
Right,
and all the utilities are carried on. So right now, old Fraks only have, kind of art and historical. You always had basically for a half of a year, you had the chance to, migrate.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Sweet. I'm curious, since you've been on Solana for so long, what would you say the most successful token projects or NFT projects are in terms of achieving a long-term vision? And this can go outside of Solana as well, but since, we're Solana natives, I figure start it there.
Yeah, I guess, honestly, when we're always seeing a few kind of heroes, kind of popping out on Sol and then kind of fading, and I'm kind of probably Digat by the kind of greatest example, but there are other couple like that. And I think the most successful projects are actually the ones that survived through these 2-3 years. So I would say, for example, Affinity is one of my favorite projects because it's super, straightforward, clear. Here's the protocol, here's the utility. That's how it's linked to NFTs, and it just makes total sense. And there is no, how to say that, there is no like hype.
They haven't
hype.
Overhyped it. They've just sort of delivered for 2 years straight.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's one of the working group members. Durden is, so it's fun to work closely with him. And yeah, I agree there. Yeah, there's been a few of those that have been coming out, like Flash Trade and a few other that are. I don't know if they're going to long-term vision, but somebody mentioned it in the chat. It's pretty cool to see sort of the raw utility plays doing fairly well, right? Like they're not mooning like a hype project, but they're not dying either, which is a nice, healthy thing to see.
Yeah, I think those projects have the highest chances to survival, and that's how we structured our project as well. Like we are here. We've been here for 2 years, and we want to be here for the next 10, 50 years, right? And we want to survive through all kinds of markets, and that's our approach.
Yeah, totally. So I guess we'll get into some of the token questions. What would you say the purpose of the Banx token is? And then additionally, why would you want to launch a token despite the risk, whether that's perceptual or financial or otherwise? Why would you want to launch a token?
So about the token utility first. The token utility is pretty straightforward. All the revenue that is generated by the protocol will go into buying back the token and storing that into DAO treasury. And that DAO treasury is going to, manage the pretty much, right? And as of now, there is a complete 100% revenue share from what the protocol produces, like generates to the holders. So it will be up to DAO to either like change it or not, but that's currently the case. So that's the very straightforward and kind of clear utility that we provide to the token. But aside from that, we always kind of promised that all the cash flow will go through the token, which I believe is fair. And last but not least, launching the token allows us to tap into like more people, like for example, Jupiter audience, right? Let them know about the protocol, the DeFi opportunities that we allow, and yield generation that we allow with and yeah, just basically it's very different when you enter the community with like $500 NFT, right? It's kind of has its own cost, right? And it's already investment. And with the tokens, we obviously have fungibility. They're usually way more liquid. So you have an opportunity to, get into the protocol at lower price or with size if you want, because, the liquidity is better. So all those things, yeah, just spreading across the Solana, making sure that, we can onboard more and more people.
So I'm very interested in that facet of your project, the fact that you distribute 100% of the revenue prior to the NFT stakers, and more currently, I think you're going to do it for the token stakers or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions regarding this. What has the impact of this been on your business? What compelled you to make this decision, and how is the team paying themselves salaries if all of the revenue is going towards the holders?
Yeah. So, but first of all, we are major, like huge holders of our own assets. So, and we have a thing that is called protocol-owned liquidity that is also deploys capital into protocol, to generate yield. And that'll be probably split between, Sol and Banx, so we can earn share of that ourselves. There is also the way that there is revenue share is structured. There is always a share that is unclaimed by holders, so they basically forgot about it. And we have we had a governance proposal, and basically after this one, we are able as a team also claim that. So these are two main revenue sources for Banx as a team, since you asked. And we've always been kind of inclined into be completely revenue share. To answer other questions, we've always been completely inclined to be completely revenue shared and kind of community run project and protocol. So in order to make that happen, we run the governance pretty early, and we made sure that every holder is incentivized to help us and push us as best as possible. So yeah, it wasn't really a kind of difficult decision. It kind of we kind of went to it right on, and just after that, we managed to find a way to make this whole thing working for us too. I don't want to jinx it, but we're a small and really lean team. It really depends on Sol price and the action volume on the protocol, but we already reached the break-even point on some weeks, so that proves that model is working. So
yeah,
we just need to grow it and make sure that Solana pumps a couple X to make it even better for us.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. I'd enjoy that. I have some just to sort of summarize. Am I understanding correctly in that? So right now, rev share is distributed to Banx, the NFT. When the token launches, that'll be distributed to the token itself. So it's switching over. And am I then under the assumption that you stake your Banx for the token at that point, or is there some other mechanism in place for that?
Yeah, I will explain it in very basic terms. If you're more interested,
Perfect.
You can hop on our Discord to learn the details, or maybe shoot me a DM. That also works. But basically, what we have is this thing called points, and these points decide how much of the share of the revenue you have in what stake you have in the protocol, pretty much, right? And we've always been transparent with our NFT holders that at some point the split is going to be way more heavy on NFT on the token, in that the revenue itself would be distributed through the token. So currently, if you stake Banx after the IDO, the amount of Banx you stake and the amount of tokens you stake define your points, right? And according to these points, we will distribute the revenue that is going to be in the form of Banx, and that happens each week. And currently, like you said, it's 1% goes to NFT holders. After the token launch, the split is going to be about 60 to 40% or like 70 to 30%, depending on, of course, depending on, of course, like how active the holders are. Like I mentioned, if you're not visiting the app and you're not claiming, it means that you're not getting anything, right? So, so NFT holders might be lazier than token holders or vice versa, and then the ratio will change.
Okay, cool. So they're both going to get it moving forward. You're not necessarily switching over to the token. That's good to know. Cool. I'm curious sort of on the business angle and the ecosystem angle. Have you guys seen a different pattern in regards to like loan behavior on Solana, depending on, because you've been around, right? Bear market, bull market. Do people lend and borrow differently now than they did, say, I don't know, 6 months or even a year ago?
Honestly, no. I think just collections and like, basically the landscape of the market changed because a year ago or like a year and a half ago, we had completely different leaders list, right? Like Digas were on top, then right behind them, I think it was SMBs. And then you had, I don't know, like these major things coming up like SATs and things like that. And right now, kind of the top 10 definitely took a change, and that is not what's happening on ETH, for example, because on ETH the top 10 is top 5 is pretty much consistent and the same. So the fact that our leaders and like our floors change a lot, it still doesn't, that shapes up the market, and market is a bit less stable, and like you won't see loans that are going on for years like it happens on ETH. But still, it's very, I don't know, exciting environment to work in, and that is what currently defines the landscape. But I believe that sooner or later it will come down to more to ETH situation when those kind of leaders and mastodons don't leave and to other chains and don't rug. And like the value that people see in those NFTs will increase. Yeah, and we basically, as we started to initially as a pool-based protocol with pool deposits and Oracle in between. At some point, we had like I believe $12 or $15 million in TVL, and I think it was right before FTX or something like that. And FTX day was crazy, but that's a whole different story. But after that, we kind of saw that our model with the pool-based deposit and Oracle doesn't scale properly as it does in ETH because of that thing I mentioned, because our NFTs as a collateral still not stable enough and not proven enough. And in order for it to continue to scale, we would need to go to major risks in terms of like liquidity. And that's something that I wasn't, agreeing on. So we shifted the protocol, like pivoted a bit into P2P model where there is no liquidity and Oracle risks relying on us. So we kind of, learned from that too. And we still kept most of the features that people love, which is like perpetual loans, progressively interest accruing loans, a lot of flexibility, most of the flexibility that is possible on the lender side and on the borrower side. So
and to kind of I would say re-emphasize on that point is that throughout the life cycle that we've experienced, and doesn't matter what model we actually kind of had, we noticed that there's more and more appetite for lenders and borrowers to go after a much lower risk type of approach that is also for them more aligned with, okay, well, I want to unlock capital for, any type of endeavor that I want to do. Do I want to use the funds to long Bitcoin now at 62K and not having the impending doom of, oh shit, I got to pay back within 3 days, 7 days or something extremely, pressing on time. And this is actually something that we've seen in, the user base that we have that is a lot more now matured and understands more the need of having liquidity, but also not having that extreme risk that they put on themselves. So that's really one of the learnings that we've seen in 2 years and a half, is definitely the growth in mindsets that we've seen from people and users. which is actually, it's a good sign, right? It's a positive sign that we don't go through the same problems again 2.5 years after. So yeah, we can only hope that it continues that way, because I really think that Solana now is about to mature really heavily in terms of, DeFi knowledge, NFT knowledge, and so on.
Yeah, totally. So I have a couple other questions around just general loaning behavior and whatnot. I'm curious what you guys think about sort of the hyper financialization of NFTs. Do you feel that undermines the community forming aspects or potentially artistic aspects of them?
Yeah, that's been like a hot topic lately, right? It always been so actually. I remember there was like huge clashes about MMs launching on Solana right after. I think first it was Tensor, then Hadeswap, then Coral Cube. So a lot of MMs pumped out, and people were like, okay, yeah, right now it's not any NFTs anymore, it's just tokens with pictures, and you guys removed the whole meaning. I kind of tend to disagree with that. For me, NFTs are exciting asset class with the social layer above it, like, and that kind of whole identity thing. And I see myself even way more attached to NFT that even Rakt at this point, but it's like worthless than to, yeah, the token. Maybe it's pumping. Okay, I made a couple grand, but it's just money to me, right? So yeah, I'm pretty bullish on one-on-one scene. I'm pretty bullish on utility NFTs on Solana. I believe honestly that that's one of the identities that the NFT space successfully found, is collections that are backed by real teams, real products, and that these products and teams drive real value to their collections. And we see, as you mentioned, more and more examples like that with Flash Trade. I believe we are in the same category with Tensor, with Madlats, and many other like projects where that it's not just like a bunch of kids who are like hyping around, but it's great teams with product and real long-term mindset, and that just want to drive real value to these assets. And yeah, I believe we'll see more and more of that, and that's gonna shape that identity of the Solana culture even more.
Sweet. I got one more question. We can pass it over to Slorg. How do you avoid getting crushed, sort of, like, I guess, motivation or grit speaking, by the hype ceiling that liquidity events like a token launch or even an NFT launch create, right? Like the amount of pressure that those put on you and anybody who tries to do them is pretty intense. What sort of methods and I don't know, abilities have you learned over the last few years to deal with that?
That's a good one.
Patience is key. Gotta be
Yeah.
patient with yourself and organization, really. It's all about planning to execute. And yeah, in the past you could make mistakes and you would learn from your mistakes, and that's really key as well. And I think that's just valid, for a token launch, but it's also valid for how you operate a company or a project. Is you will make at some point, decisions that could potentially be mistakes, right? And what's key is off of these mistakes that you can really relearn and readapt. And I think one of the strengths that we've had in the last 2.5 years is whenever we felt like, okay, well, we're going maybe a direction that is not really going to be the best for the project and, for the community, then we could always kind of readapt and readjust and, together, not only as a team, because, having a project within Web3 is also kind of, you're quote unquote building in public. So you have a community that is, helping you, supporting you, keeping you in check as well, right? When things go wrong, it's good to also go through the constructive feedback, even if sometimes it hurts. So I think it's really all about, once you've learned from that, is really plan for the worst and expect the best. I think is really the key here. Even if you launch a token, you really have to take these things into account and, approach it as if, it's another delivery, which it is, and have to come prepared. I think really preparation is key.
Those events can be very hectic, and also, yeah, I remember in our last Banx NFT mint, which was about a year ago, right? And yeah, wasn't walk in the park, that's for sure. I think also what helps us is to kind of rely on a bit on diamond handed community we have. And really, like, some of these guys, in our Discord, who've been with us with like through everything pretty much, right? And for the last 2 years, and really they kind of bring that energy in that allows us to keep pushing, and they understand the vision, they really love the product, and the communication, the transparency, all of those things. And we just kind of aligned individuals with our, the same kind of values that we have. So yeah, I guess that's actually a huge motivational factor when we just receive the feedback from community. And I think they're like a huge contributor to us not going crazy already at this point.
Sweet. That was a great answer. Slorg, you want to take it away with your section?
Yeah, sure. First, before I ask the question, I just want to commend you guys on your really proper back and forth, because I've interviewed people who have been on the same project team before and they sometimes step on each other's toes, but you guys have a really good rapport going on. So I just want to note that.
I appreciate that. We've been doing that for 2 years and a half, and I think I've spoken to Tim more than I have to my actual girlfriend.
Oh, I have 5 questions for you guys, and I think that will conclude the first part of our AMA section. 2 of them have been sourced from the community. The first question I'll ask you guys is, what do you feel is the biggest constraint to growing the number of overall users in the space? Personally, I feel that it's the drainer and scam crisis. What do you guys think it is?
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you. That's one of the biggest issues. But even when I try to onboard like normies and people not familiar with crypto, like, I'm setting up the Phantom and things like that. And then you kind of already feel them being scared, right? Because there is no guarantees and so many things that you can do wrong with your wallet. I would also say, and maybe that's just my opinion, that the whole onboarding process is should be fixed, because again, even to interact with Solana, right now we have squads with like fees relaying, and there are some apps that you can use and solve without paying transaction fees, but still in order to use Solana, even if it's small fees, still you have to either off ramp somehow and then deposit from like centralized exchange to your wallet, and it's kind of already a few steps but as we know, like, the more steps you require, the less people are gonna go through it, right? So I would try to find the ways to skip those steps and allow people to try new products, especially if they don't require you already having some kind of assets, like in our case NFTs, already get a feel of it. And I think apps like J.U.P, for example, doing a fantastic job in that regard, and trying to you don't need to do and have anything. You just log in, you just click a button, and then you have your pretty JPEG on your wallet, right? Just as simple as that. And I guess the onboarding process would be improved. The scams, as you mentioned, the whole reliability of the space, also with stable coins, for example. When I talked to a few people who were onboarded like last bull, they all were super confused about the Luna situation, right? And like, how do I use a stable coin that is unstable? So like, I wouldn't call it a scam, but like kind of these, call it scams, probably. A huge thing too.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of friction. Sorry, did you want to go?
Yeah, no, I think I agree. Yeah, I mean, I know I agree as well with indeed the fact that people do get burned, and it's even more so, I think, a deterrent, because when someone has a very bad experience, like on average, they will talk about a bad experience to 9 other people, and if someone has a positive experience, they will talk about it to roughly 3 people. So we definitely, the more people get wrecked, through scams, through drainers and whatnot, the more it's going to, like, it makes it so much more difficult later on, right? And I think one of the things that a lot of apps are working towards now, and I think Solana is very much ripe for that, is the UX that is extremely easy to just start with. So I think, by this year's Christmas, I'm pretty sure we can all be kitted out to show Phantom and every other app or backpack, whichever we want to push to our families and loved ones. And yeah, I think there will be between now and Christmas and the next couple of weeks, month ahead. I think there will be a lot more progress as well with what type of measures can be put in place to safeguard the people hopping in. Because at the end of the day, it is still kind of the wild west within crypto, and it is definitely a risky venture, even though there are ways to not have it risky. And I think it's really all about making sure people understand that, for starters, and then there are things, just like with anything, right, that you should not do.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. The fact that, and something that's overlooked, is the fact that when someone's scammed, they broadcast that to 10, 20 other people. So it's not just that person in isolation. Definitely, that's a good point. Where do you guys feel the space is going to head in the next 3 to 5 years? What are your opinions on this topic that might be a bit out there or outside of the norm?
Well, yeah, I'm still behind my idea of utility NFTs with social layer. I think it's freaking amazing because you have your kind of selective group of your ambassadors right away shaped with aligned economical value, right? Because if floor goes up, they're kind of gaining economically, and at the same time you're kind of creating that bond between their personality and identity of the NFT. So I'm not sure like a lot of people realize that, and like the power of it. Like imagine you having if you're using, I don't know, if you're a big fan of Slack, right, and you have your kind of Slack PFP, right, that thing is going to be huge, just like for example. And the second thing that I believe Solana is kind of sneakily doing is by launching this low cost phone. I think we're going to see a major influx of users, countries like India and Pakistan and places like that, with like third world countries, because for them the Solana is hands down like the perfect chain. It's fast. You can use consumer apps, and it's completely almost free, right? So you don't pay $50 for transaction, and $50 is like huge money for Indian or Pakistani guy. Like for some people, it's like their monthly salary or something. So that's where like Solana comes into place, allowing them basically being the first consumer-oriented blockchain for these people that can actually use. And yeah, considering also like the fintech in some places are wonky there, it's like the perfect spot for Solana to take, be basically the building stone for all the fintech that can come up from these countries. So yeah, I don't think also a lot of people realize that.
Yeah, and I think a tangent to this as well is in developing countries, they build economies based off solely on, interacting with the phones and text messages, and they do transact actual, money that way. And I think indeed that Solana is repriming itself. So to become one of these layers that, these populations will be able to benefit from, and the position that we already see today, for example, very cheap NFTs. I mean, with NFTs, obviously, with, the scale that we're looking at, how they are pushing that phone as well, and combined to all of this, the infrastructure itself that is aiming at becoming that is the cheapest, but still keep on being the cheapest as well. I think we'll see at that moment. I think that the mind share that the Solana chain and apps and potential that it unlocks in these regions will be so impossible to ignore that it's going to be the tipping point for the snowball effect within I would say quote unquote normies or retail, or that's I think one of the component for mass adoption that may actually happen sooner rather than later. Especially that we're probably going to get headlines again about crypto with Bitcoin reaching 60K, and it's a perfect segue to then introduce other means that may be more fit for a majority of people.
Right. I would not underestimate the importance of mobile. I did not know this until recently, but apparently like the overwhelming majority of people on Twitter use mobile Twitter. I guess I'm an anomaly because I use desktop Twitter. So I'm going to ask my final 2 questions. Then we're going to do the part 1 interview with Zeus. So one of you or both of you can hang around until the second part. After we're done with that, we'll open up to you guys, and then we'll open up to the audience as the conclusion. So final two questions. HGE is one of the most notable figures in the space, and he has been a strong vocal proponent of Banx. What is his role in the project? Is he an advisor? Is he a holder?
Yeah, so HG was indeed a very early supporter of us. He invested in the seed round, so he's investor. And yeah, he holds quite a few Banx NFTs because he minted them at the public stage as everybody. That's about it. Like as every seed investor, we obviously consult with him and engage. So yeah, same position as a Soul Big Brain, for example, right? Soul Big Brain is also one of the OGs and the early investor as well, and yeah, it also holds quite a few Banx.
Oh, nice! You guys got big brain.
Yeah, of course, of course.
That's sick. Okay, my final question is: if you were part of the DAO, and I assume you are because you guys hold some Jupiter tokens, I assume, why would you vote for Banx to launch on the LFG Launchpad?
Well, yeah, like I said, we're focused on driving maximum value to our holders, and that's how our tokenomics constructed. And that's the first thing. The second thing is that there is a huge upside, I believe, in our token launch because it's 40% circulated supply on the launch with 6 mil total value. So it's very low. And we've been kind of, we all have PTSD from low circulating supply and high FDVs, right? Launching on Solana from like 2 years ago. So we went completely opposite direction and want to launch like the best economics possible. And the determined team that stays here through everything and always been, keeping our promises to holders, executing our best, being completely transparent on what's going on, what decisions are made, and etc., and communicating thoughtfully with the holders day to day. And all of those things I think sum up with.
Gotcha. Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you for all of that transparency and insight. That was a fantastic AMA.